It is 6:30, so I'll call the meeting in order and see if we can beat the storms. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recognitions. State recognitions.
The state of Wisconsin has issued the following proclamation. June 20 to 24, 2022 is Summer Meals Week. All proclamations are available on the district website.
Wisconsin.
WRTI recognition. So good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Before I get into this, Rick had mentioned that we could have some severe weather potentially heading our way. And I think we are under a tornado watch at this time. So just for those of you who are here, depending on how long our meeting goes, if we do end up having to seek shelter, if we get into a tornado warning, our shelter is right down those steps, immediately to the left. I don't want to be over the top,
Better safe than sorry.
I agree. So I just want to make sure everybody knows. So it's down the steps to the left if we end up getting into a situation where we have to seek shelter. So this evening we have a couple recognitions. The first is the Wisconsin RTI Center recognition for Parkview, Thorson, and Westlawn Elementary School. Ask Jane to jump up there at the mic. The Department of Public Instruction and the Wisconsin RTI Center has recognized Cedarburg schools for their work implementing a successful school-wide equitable multi-level system of supports aimed at closing the achievement gap. We are proud to announce that for the 21-22 school year, the Wisconsin RTI Center has recognized Parkview, Thorson, and Westlawn for their work. Congratulations to Thorson and Westlawn for being recognized at the silver level, and Parkview for the bronze level. So I'll let Jane talk a little bit about what that recognition means.
Thank you. We are always excited when we get some kind of recognition, and this one comes relatively easy. We fill out an application. It's a survey each year about what things you have in place for the RTI PAIS portion of our schools. So it's the behavior piece is that the elementary schools have been focused on. We make sure that we have processes in place so students know exactly what's expected of them, and then they are rewarded for those behaviors. It's a system that helps kids build that knowledge and understanding of what appropriate behaviors are expected of them so that they aren't only doing it because of the rewards, but that they know how to behave. Unfortunately, Parkview this year realizes that there was a piece that had to be submitted during our COVID year last year that got kind of dropped. It didn't get submitted, or we would have had silver as well. We've been assured that all 3 schools will have silver next school year.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane. Jane's going to stay at the mic, and we are going to talk about professional learning communities. Jane brought a team here this evening to talk about the recognition that Parkview has received. And I want to thank Jane, who is retiring at the end of this year, to come back. And she has another retiree in the group who's come back to present as well. Jane.
Come on up, team. Yeah, you thought you were getting rid of me, but here I am again. I really thought it was my last school board meeting, but you keep coming back, so we'll show you our flag that we've done. Yes.
Political time too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I did put out the call last minute for staff members who, like I, am passionate about PLCs to come and help us receive this recognition from the school board. So we're very appreciative to the board for not only supporting the PLC work that we've done with financing some of our attendance at conferences and bringing in a conference for the entire staff in August. It's helped us grow tremendously, but we do appreciate it very much. So we have Terry Schwab, she is one of our kindergarten teachers. Ashley Moldenhauer is a 4th grade teacher. Jennifer French is a 3rd grade teacher. Barbara Donaldson is our literacy coach who is retiring with me this year. And then Katie Janik, a 2nd grade teacher. They've both been in it for the long haul for quite a while. We've been working on PLC concepts, and we finally have seen the fruit of our labors. So model PLC schools, they are known as very high-performing schools. There are criteria that have to be met. PLC is a professional learning community concept that helps us work very smartly using our data so that we are really targeting the learning for the students. So in order to qualify, you have to demonstrate a commitment to PLC at Work concepts. You have to have those concepts in place for 3 years. You must have evidence of improved student learning, not just overall achievement, but also subgroups. And you must then, once you qualify, each year prove that you will continue to meet criteria for academic achievement. So the process to apply, it was kind of a long and windy path. I wasn't sure that we were going to apply. I had considered applying in the 18-19 school year. We've been working on PLC at Parkview, doing PLC Lite, which is a thing, maybe do some pieces of it, for over a decade. And then the pandemic did slow us down, but even when we were working virtually, we were still learning and meeting together and practicing processes with our data and our curriculum to improve. So the process that I jumped into spring break, I was encouraged by my PLC coach. This year we had used Solution Tree to have administrator coaching. And after a couple of meetings with her, she said, Jane, why haven't you applied? You have a lot of things really securely in place. So we jumped in, and it's a multi-step process for the application. You have to tell your PLC story. So what brought you to this place where you're applying for the model school status? What practices are firmly in place? You have to have a lot of data to prove that you're continuing to not only make improvements and grow, but sustain that. And then any awards that you received, and then resources. So resources was really easy. As I was searching in my Google Drive for PLC trainings that we've done, there was so many trainings, so many slideshows going back to when we started using Google Drive, which is a little embarrassing. So there was a lot of opportunities for us to show that. And then, after a couple of weeks, after submitting the application, I did get the notification that we had qualified, which was really exciting. Typically, Solution Tree then works with you on your application, comes in and coaches you. Maybe it takes another year, maybe you're encouraged to reapply, but it was really exciting that they said right away we had all the pieces in place. So in the country, and Solution Tree's PLC process, it's an international corporation, but we have about 200 schools in the country that are recognized as PLC model schools. And now in our state, we're one of 7, 3 of which are elementary schools. Now I am going to pass the mic over to Barbara.
So Solution Tree in the PLC process has 3 big ideas and is focusing on learning, which what that means is there are no excuses. We can't say it's because of our home life or because of this or because of that. It's about what we have in control. So we're focusing on the learning. Results oriented, we use the data to help drive our instruction and to revisit instruction if we need to. We also have a collaborative culture, and this is a big shift. We have gone where we have teacher teams that work together in collaboration, and they use their data to support their teaching. So they can teach, pre-teach, reteach, and do extensions, all within that collaborative culture.
Okay.
As a staff, we use these 4 questions to drive our PLC process. We are continually asking ourselves, what do we want our students to know and be able to do? How do we know if our students have learned it? What do we do if our students have not learned it? And what do we do if they have? And it's through this questioning process that we deliver that curriculum, but we're able to focus on our essential standards. We're developing and choosing assessments that will help us gather data to support any interventions or extensions that we provide for our students.
You might have recognized this, or maybe not. This was part of the slideshow that when it was presented in the 2019 school board presentation. This was also shown as well, kind of based off of that framework of what a PLC is, the collaborative piece, around those essential questions. of those 4 big questions, and we use them on an everyday basis. You can see based on our essential standards, our common assessments, some of our interventions and extensions. So really it's not just going off those 4 questions, it's just whole life. It's just become part of our everyday.
I'm happy I can talk about this slide because I think it is super duper cool. And I would like to just say that you can see that in every year except the very first year when we were exceeds expectation, Parkview has earned a significantly exceeds expectations. And I will say a lot of this is because of the PLC process and the things we've put in place to really focus on student learning. I would also like to say though, in 2013-14 is when the LC initiative, Literacy Collaborative Initiative was adopted, and you can see then we grew, we had a big growth there. And then last year was the Bridges implementation, and you can see we jumped up. I also want to point out that we don't have any data from 2019 to 2020 because that was our COVID year. But if you will notice that Parkview grew, that's really awesome because most states did not grow or stay the same. So like, even though we had COVID, that commitment of teachers to helping all kids learn at high levels helped us get there to that higher level. So it's something to be proud of.
And this kind of follows up with what Barbara said. It shows you data from 2015 up until 2021. And the 2 sides, one of them shows the ELA achievement, and the other side shows the math achievement. And if you follow the red line, that is the state's scores. And if you look at the blue, that is where Parkview is performing. And each of the years, we were growing. And again, there's that gap here that Barbara talked about in terms of COVID. But our scores continue to stay high. And these scores put us at 99th percentile of all the elementary schools in the state of Wisconsin. So we're doing well.
I did touch it. There we go. So the data here built off of what Terry was just speaking of, but now they're also adding in the district, Parkview, and then the state. So something I'd like to mention is, you look at this data and you just see these bars. They're actually very similar, right, to we're growing, and continuing. But what we're doing when we meet as a team, we're literally breaking down like 2 percentile or a 5 percentile and saying, what did we do that was well, what are we still lacking at, what can we, and that's why you're seeing over time, we're continually making little gains, and a little means a lot over time. And we are breaking it down to see what can we even do better and build off of that last year. And like we mentioned too with the COVID year, we were really proud that we still had those gains and we still were, our students were still succeeding. So, yay, Parkview!
On this side, it shows the 4th grade board exam. Definitely proud of this being a 4th grade teacher, seeing that continuous improvement based on Parkview Elementary being the blue line, Cedarburg School District being the green line, and then Wisconsin. You can see both in math as well as ELA and looking at those different board exams that we're just continuing to achieve and really push our students and drive not only our achievement gap students, but also our goal this year was to kind of look at those students that were below basic, and move those into proficient, because that's where a lot of the movement is going to be, not just on the extensions or our ones that we really need to support, but on those students that are just at that gap that just need that extra little touch to kind of move them into proficient. So that's what we've been focusing, and we're hoping this year we'll just keep going.
Thanks, Ashley. And I did want to also point out that if you look at the red bar for the state, this is 18-19 school year on the forward exam for proficiency. And then when you look at the 2021, how much that year impacted the state. Unfortunately, the district and Parkview continue to grow, which is, as a couple others have mentioned, still something that really shows we continue to work really hard and deliver the instruction as well as anybody could. The teachers worked so hard even when they were virtual. Right, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Here's a virtual teacher for 3rd grade.
Yeah.
It was easy, right?
Fun stuff.
It was easy. And And then this one is just a fun slide that shows, over the years, again, another one of those pieces of evidence that showed our continued improvement. And there's multiple different groups that look at ratings of elementary schools. And this is the one that is used by School Digger. School Digger is the one that is recommended by CESA 6, Eric Larson, our consultant. And it shows over time how our rating within the state has changed and grown. So going from 2015, number 39 in the state, and to 221 to be number 6. We're also rated 10 out of 1,300 at US News and World Reports, and 12 out of like 1,600 for niche ratings right now. So all of this, let Barbara talk first.
So this is just another way to look at our ELA data. And you can see that in ELA, we did take a little bit of a hit when we were not in session in 2019 to 20. But I will say that it's very, very difficult to teach like guided reading groups and things like that over virtually. And our teachers did a fabulous job. I will say the Parkview teachers did 100% effort. They did not give up, but it did make a little impact. You see we dipped a little bit for our third graders, but again, they would have been like first graders, where that's so important to have that teacher right there beside the kids. Our fourth grade data looks strong. You see that we grew, we have an upward trend line. And fifth grade, we dipped a little bit, but again, if you compare it to the state and the dips the state made, it really is considered exceptional data. And when you look at the actual percentile that Cedarburg and Parkview Elementary is in, like I think Terry said, like in the 99th percentile, there's not a lot of wiggle room there, so we're really proud of that. So, and one of the things that we did is we continue to have training in PLC during those years, and the last, math is the last one, and this one, okay, we did implement last year, the Bridges math program, and look at that, look how those trend lines for Parkview in all three grades have an upward trajectory. That's super strong data. And the state, look at that decline. So it's something to really be proud of. Again, our teachers really worked hard collaboratively to implement that and to make sure all the kids learned at high levels. So we're very proud of our school, and our teachers are the best in the world.
So that is what has resulted in us achieving this goal of ours for years. Maybe the teachers didn't always know it was a goal, but when you are in such a high-performing school where the teachers are never satisfied with good enough or okay, they're always looking for ways to improve the learning for the students and relying on one another to improve instruction. We've gotten to the point where the teachers are so open and honest with one another and really digging down into the data to make sure that they're doing everything they possibly can to give every student the right opportunity. When I was a little hesitant, like, is this the right time, or should I retire, or shouldn't I retire? My PLC coach, Deb Vanporth, said to me, is your work going to continue when you retire, when you're gone? And I knew right then, absolutely it will. I know that the teachers have really owned this work, and they feel it's the right thing to do, and it is what has resulted in this great success that we have experienced here at Parkview. So again, we are proud of our achievement, but we're also very grateful that the district has continued to support our learning with PLC work and send us to conferences and bring in those experts who can continue to help us grow. We're also grateful that the district, it's now a district initiative instead of Parkview. We practiced pretty quietly in our own little corner of the district for quite a while, and I remember when we used to do the surveys in 18, 19, 17, 18, 19, 20, and the staff would say, my leadership team would say, if only we could do this with the whole district. And of course, when you start something new, sometimes you have to back up a little bit. We're working on a curriculum together now, but it's all the right work, and it will continue to help all of us grow and learn from one another. So thank you.
So, as a father of Parkview grads, way to go Parkview.
Right.
Congratulations, and thank you for all your hard work. I mean, this didn't happen overnight without a lot of extra work by all of you, and we really appreciate that. You know, the numbers show it, so thank you very much.
To the
I'd
team.
like to add that, you know, when I look back and when I went to school here in elementary school, it was so different than what you're teaching. I mean, back then, 30 kids in a room and just the teacher just taught. And most kids got it, some didn't, and were left behind in what you're doing. The questions you talk about, I remember this, what do we do if they don't learn it? And then also, what do we do if they already knew it? Are two incredible questions that you're asking. And that's what every school needs to be doing. So I appreciate your efforts. Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, Parkview, we're extremely proud of the work that you've done, Jane, and the team, and I'm happy to say that it's PLC Underground is no longer, like you said, C grade, you know. Casey's here, high school principal, one of the draws to Casey was that he has a thorough background in PLC work, and all of our buildings are doing this work, which is awesome. Parkview certainly has been leading the charge just due to their propensity for this type of work and the work that Jane has done over the years. It's impressive to be one of only 7 schools in the state and less than a handful of elementary. That's extremely impressive. I think you are grateful, but I also would say you're humble because you don't go after and try to achieve these big honors. You do the work that's right for the kids, and when you do that right work, great recognition happens and acknowledgments, instant accolades. So congratulations on that, and I love the fact that it is really data-driven instructional decision-making. I kind of pieced that together, listening to all that you have said, and that's what it is. How can we improve our game so then the outcome is better for our students, and that's all students. So that's great work, and that's the work that we're doing across the district, board members. And you've heard it in presentations. Casey's presentation, you heard it in Tony's presentation from middle school, and of course when the 3 elementary schools presented here, I also touched on PLC. And the new superintendent, Jordan, knows the work that we're doing, and there's a couple trainings this summer that he's planning on, I believe, attending, so he can continue to support the schools in this work.
I'd like to add one more thing that you just mentioned, or maybe the work. I'm kind of a data geek. I look at the state results and compare our school district to that each year. And during COVID, you had some areas where you improved during COVID, which, if you look statewide, nobody was improving. Everybody was negative. Everybody was trending down. So you guys figured it out and did a great job. So thanks for all your efforts to go through that. And a lot of parents were questioning. And you guys did a great job. So thank you.
And our teachers worked so hard that spring of 2022. I mean, I know from other colleagues in other districts that they didn't really know what to do, and there was so much talking about what to do and very little actually happening, where our teachers were meeting with students, and it was very intense, very intentional, but it was the farthest thing from relaxing or taking a break that you could ever imagine. So our teachers didn't miss a beat with that.
Absolutely. You look at some of those, like, for example, the math, it's not that we declined less than the rest of the state. We actually improved,
Yes.
which is phenomenal.
And some of that we can thank to our adoption. We had been increasing in math for quite a while, and literacy has been our focus. But we had a new adoption, and we did see some scores increase, even though we were expecting a little bit of an adaptation or an adoption dip that you sometimes have. So that was really good.
Congratulations.
Are you able to characterize the journey the other schools are on?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Hank. So the journey that the other schools are on, well, Casey's here. He can talk about his journey. If you want to, Casey, come on, I'll put you on the spot. So this past, and Alan's here as well, so Alan can talk a little bit about the work that the district has done. We started this school year with a PLC Institute, if you will. The entire district was involved, where the teachers can select different breakout sessions, and it was all through the institution, and it was virtual speakers around the country, and they were in different sections or sessions that pertain to their need or their desire to grow professionally. So some of it was on maybe literacy practices, some of it may have been on meeting the needs of all kids, meeting the needs of students who are further behind than others, and then they were able to take those practices and put them in place in their buildings. All the buildings have, if you will, school building leadership teams, and they annually, multiple times throughout the year, are looking at their data and making data-informed decisions based on what they're seeing. So they may have groups that are overperforming, such as thing, performing well beyond expectations. Why is that happening? What are we doing that's making that happen, and what's our contributions to that? And they can have conversations with their grade levels, within the school, and across schools. And then the opposite happens as well. So if there's groups that are not performing at level, when you segregate the data, you could look at that data and say, why aren't those kids growing? And what is it that the teachers need to do in order to make certain that those kids are growing? So you can look at and dissect our data in any particular way. That's the way we have it set up. So you can look at those students who are on the GEP spectrum, or you can look at the students who maybe need additional support, and you can begin to cluster those students. And sometimes there's similar characteristics for those kids, and sometimes there's not. But we are able to give the teachers and provide the teachers the skills that they need to move those kids forward.
Have any of the other schools received expectations of Scott at the beginning of their journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. They are all at different stages in the journey, but they all are deeply rooted in the journey. This is the first year that all of our schools in the district had reached the state level significantly exceeds. So I contribute to that accomplishment due to the PLC work. ACT at the high school, comprehensive high school, top of the state. I think the work that Casey is doing and the work that's been done can be partially attributed to the PLC work. This is something PLC is you don't ever arrive. Like, hey, we're here. It's a culture, it's a climate, it's the work that we do on a regular basis. And I like to think I know we're doing the right work. Casey, do you want to talk a little bit about the work?
Yeah, I would say that the high schools, we're laying the foundation right now for this more than some of the other schools. We just finished up some work, compiled a team from across the school, representative of new teachers, veterans across different departments, and we created our kind of foundational document. So we've got a mission, vision, values, collective commitments, calling it the Bulldog Way. I kind of referenced that when I presented to the board earlier on this year, and I'll be presenting this document to this group then next year when I get my report. But basically just saying, this is who we are, this is what we do, here's how we go about our work, referencing those 4 questions in the PLC model, making sure that we're hitting every kid. The kid that already knows it, the kid that needs a little bit of extra help, how we build systems around that. Our schedule was intentionally built for next year so that any course that has 3 or more sections are being taught by 2 teachers, and those 2 teachers share a prep time. So we'll have more continuity across these sections, more opportunities to look at data, make these decisions, and then divide and conquer some of these challenges. So, I've got kids that are struggling, you might have kids in your class that are struggling. I'll take the strugglers, you take the kids that already got it, and let's multiply our efforts. So, excited.
It's been a journey, there's no question, Henry. Back when I was in CNI, we had started the conversation about developing schedules that allowed for collaboration time amongst teachers in the same grade level, so that you find at the elementary level, so you have 3rd grade teachers have the same prep time, if you will, so it allows them to meet and look and talk about that. Same thing happens at the high school, in the departments, and the same thing happens at the middle school. So we built schedules that allow teachers to collaborate. How are your kids doing? You give a common assessment. How did your kids do on that assessment? How did your kids do on assessment? You can look at the data and then have conversations. And you can begin to cluster the kids and address. So some kids' learning styles are different than others. So you as a teacher, what is it that you need in order to address that group of students who may be underperforming? That's the kind of fruitful conversation that's going on. Thanks, Casey, for just popping up there. I appreciate it.
Next is the consent agenda.
So the consent agenda, board members, I'd ask that you approve the minutes from the May 25th meeting, the budget and financial report, which includes financial information, which is the summary of accounts, check register, check detail, credit card transaction report, and the personnel report, and comments here to give an update on the personnel report. And I will just say quickly about the personnel report. We tend to update that report multiple times leading up to a board meeting. So I know there's been some conversation one time we paused and we didn't update it until the day of. And sometimes that happens because we have resignations or new hires that are happening right up to the day of the board meeting. And so the personnel report that's in there today is different than the one that was posted 2 days ago. So just for the general public and the board to know, that's a continuous kind of moving target right up to the board meeting.
And especially for hires, it's important because they
Especially-
don't want to have to wait a month to find out that they got a job, so it's
Yeah.
important to update that at the last minute.
June 15th is the last day by statute that teachers have to return contracts that have been offered for renewals. So we literally needed every last minute we could get today. In fact, 2 resignations that you have before you, those really don't require any action because these are just teachers that didn't take the renewed contract. So they're just saying they're going to go on to other opportunities. We are excited to have contracts for the board to approve this evening for new educators that we'll be adding to the team. Benedict Behrens, educator at Webster, Mark Creer, educator at the high school, Gretchen DeRosa, educator at Thorson, Rebecca Rice at CHS, Derek Schaefer at CHS, and Emily Hilgendorf at Parkview. So we do ask that the board approve those contracts for 22-23.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion?
I just want to note that I don't know Mark Creer.
Yeah, we asked.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Excellent, thank you.
Superintendent notes.
Yep, so there's one item under superintendent notes, but before I jump into that item, board members, I just want to draw your attention to the booklet that was on your table. Rick, it's under your.
Yep.
So this is something that was put up at the chamber, and I flagged a page in there that is, actually, I think it's 2 pages that are dedicated to the school district. And this is a brochure that the chamber puts out and sends it out to businesses in the area, and more importantly, businesses outside the area throughout Wisconsin, Illinois, the Midwest. And just want to give a shout out to the chamber. They did a very nice job. Karen is responsible for pulling all those pieces together and getting it in there. And it's just a nice way to enlarge our communication footprint as a district.
I see Morningstar Montessori had a pretty good advertisement.
Right there.
Not without reason there.
Yeah, yep. We are happy to support all kids in the Cedarburg community. The item that on the superintendent notes that's listed there is a safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan update. And I want to just start by saying in order to receive funds through the ESSER 3 grant, there is a federal requirement that school districts must review their safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plan every 6 months through September 30th, 2023. So that 6-month mark from when we submitted is right now, so that's the reason why it's on the agenda. There's no requirement that a school district have any specific mitigation measures in place, only that a plan exists that detail how a district has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our plan is on our website. It's the existing plan that's there, that has been there. We've been tweaking that a bit throughout the school year, and there are some attachments if you dig into our website that has details on how we managed COVID through this year. As part of that review, the school districts must allow public comment on the plan. So during the public comment section, the board may take comment or will take comment on the plan. I can tell you over the last few months, we've been scaling it back a bit. If you look at our data dashboard now, there's a message up there. We've taken the data dashboard down. The school year ended, in part because the data is really inconclusive, because now there's home tests that are going on. There's a lot of other factors that are impacting the data that we were collecting at one time. And so now if you go to the data dashboard, there's just a message here. It doesn't mean that the data is still not something that we are aware of and collecting behind the scenes, just that data dashboard, that public dashboard, is not available at this time. If in the future the board or the superintendent wants to make a pivot on that, they certainly can do that. Other things that we scaled back on is just the COVID staff. We've been reducing staff, mainly because the dollars have been drying up as well. So COVID cleaners, healthy maids, those types of things, those dollars are now sunsetting. So some of those changes have been occurring throughout the year, and certainly will continue to occur next year. The current plan that's on our website is really in effect through the end of this school year, and we count this school year as ending on June, at the end of June. So if there's going to be adjustments to that plan, They would happen in July, potentially August, and then there will be another review, I want to say, in December of that plan. So the public can continue to give feedback, and we can accept that feedback and process it, and if we need to tweak it accordingly. Other things that you may need to know about the plan, the dollars that have been allocated to the district are being used and are being used to balance our budget. There is a counselor that has been hired as part of the dollars that we received through the ESSER funding, and that counselor was in addition to Webster. And so as we work through next year, we'll have a conversation as a board and just determine how we want to continue or what the plan is to continue that support if that's the desire of the board and administration. I believe that's all I have. If there's any questions that the board may have, I'm happy to address those. Ben's here as well. Ben's been certainly taking the lead on a lot of the financial pieces behind the scenes.
I have one question. I'm looking at the plan right now on the website. One question I've been getting is if the email notifications, particularly for elementary, will still keep going out when there's a positive case in the classroom. I know that those are still going out all year up to the end of the year. Is that something that's going to be going away as well with the dashboard coming down?
Yeah, so those things will sunset or have sunset at the end of the school year, which is over. So next year, that would be a discussion, administration that we want to have, if they want to continue it, and I suspect the board, as we look at this, the plan, you're going to want to have a conversation about that as well. What's changed is just the home testing pieces, the vaccine availability. There's a lot of just moving factors, and we've had individuals who've given home tests multiple times and said they're negative, and they want to get a doctor prescribed and it's positive. And just the opposite has happened too. They go and get a test in one location, it's positive, and they take another home test that's negative. So there is some of that those variables at play that really do impact our ability to monitor the data and notify parents the way we did through the deepest part of COVID. So the plan right now is to sunset those notifications. Yep. Other questions that board members may have?
Not seeing anybody. We'll move on to public comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak this evening? No public comment? Saves me reading that. Recommendations.
So we have a number of recommendations this evening. Ben's up, he's taken the lead on 4 of them. A lot of these items, board members have been vetted and presented at the committee level, so Ben will just touch on them, and certain board members who have involved in them certainly join in and provide an explanation.
Okay. Thank you, Ted. Yeah, all 4 of these agenda items have been vetted through P&F committee this month. But the first one on there are the proposed school fees for next year. Each year we bring those to the board for approval. These are school fees for registration, for parking, for athletics, kind of the main fees for our families that they pay for different things that we have in the system. We're proposing no changes for the upcoming year. Didn't see a need for it, and so it'll just be renewal of the current fees for 2023. Is
there a motion to approve school fees?
I would make a motion to approve the school fees as presented.
A second. Second. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Budget revisions are another annual topic, so each year we bring it to the school board for approval. During the course of the year, we make revisions to the budget as needed. Some are very small, they're moving funds from one line item to another. Others are more significant, and typically those larger ones we bring to the board for discussion. But this end of the year documents is clean that all up and basically making adjustments before we close out the year. These budget adjustments obviously are still budget numbers, and so it doesn't completely match with activity. What we're trying to do is match it up as close as we can. So the most significant factors or changes we had for this year were the first one was the paying down of our Fund 38 debt, and so that came from our fund balance in Fund 10. So that was a big expense that will just be a one-time expense for this year. And then the other big one was additional funding from the state in December from the governor, additional allocation of about $400,000 to districts across the state as a reallocation of some of the federal dollars. So, other than that, it's a lot of moving, smaller moving pieces within the system, like I said, between either departments or within buildings.
Is there a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Next item is looking at the preliminary budget for 22-23. So over the course of the year, our calendar is basically, we have a budget here in October, but as we prepare for the new fiscal year that starts July 1st, we bring a preliminary budget to the board for approval. That really sets the roadmap for the upcoming fiscal year. Obviously, there's still a lot of unknowns as we go into the new year with staffing, enrollments, state aid, pieces like that that will be settled in September and October. But this preliminary budget highlights some of the main pieces for the upcoming year. Some of the larger increases, as you'll see in this kind of light item sheet that's in board docs, include commitments to compensation for staff, so the full 4.7 CPI for next year, and then the teacher comp plan. Other numbers in there are still estimates at this point, and so there's a benefit renewal for health that's earmarked at 5%. We'll know what that number looks like when we get closer to the end of summer, but that just kind of keeps our line in there so we keep track of it. And then other changes are really based on different fluctuations in the budget from year to year. Sometimes they're one-time costs, there's for 21-22 that go away next year, and vice versa for revenue. So this budget is a balanced budget. Like Todd mentioned earlier, we're balancing the budget using ESSER 3 grant dollars for 22-23. So when we look beyond 22-23, that becomes a question of what we do once those grant dollars start to run out, and we have to start to account for these recurring costs beyond next year. But for the short term, we're looking at a balanced budget for the 22-23 fiscal year.
I've got a quick question. And if you had a chance to look at our budget and with the huge inflation numbers that we're seeing nationally now and what that does to us, because I think it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, so obviously we had the large CPI number for this year, for 22-23. What we do is start forecasting what that'll look like for 23-24, and this is just for compensation. But we can get a read on what that looks like pretty early because it's month to month, and so we have 5 months of data, which have been high numbers, and we can project based on that what that looks like a little bit. Right now we project CPI for next year, not next year, but 23-24, being anywhere between 6 and 8%, and that's even if CPI was 0% for the remainder of 22. So it's going to be a high number unless there's some kind of recession or kind of downturn in that number. So
you might want to work with Brian and try to look at energy costs and things like that.
Yeah, so that's the other piece too, is that across the board we see costs increase just with building grounds, with technology, transportation, food costs. I mean, there's not an area that hasn't been touched by it. So it's a hard thing to balance because obviously we have to balance other things in the budget and still account for those. So it's a challenge.
Are you expecting the tax revenue to increase then as well, given the increase in property values and all, assuming the mill rate stays the same?
At this point, for next year, we're forecasting a favorable position with the tax levy rate. That should be in a position where it should remain relatively flat or stable, if you will. Now, if it stays flat or even if it increases, that doesn't necessarily mean more revenue for us because we're still under that cap. But the biggest piece will be what our state aid is and where our revenue limit goes, which at this point is really going to be dictated by enrollment in September. So the good news is, the tax rate should be in a good position for next year, and we should have the ability to keep that pretty stable. What revenue looks like next year is really going to be based on enrollment. As you know, there's no per pupil increases to the revenue limit, so that number won't change. But we are anticipating a bump in our special ed reimbursement aid that comes from the state. So that's in there as one of the line items that'll add a little bit extra funding to our revenue. So.
The city's reassessment of many of us will greatly help your ability to have more.
Yeah, even before, this upcoming year, rates were going up pretty steadily, 5% on average each year. But when we were at the P&F committee meeting, we talked about that a little bit, what property values were looking like. You mentioned Henny or someone else did, about how everyone's kind of get reassessed and those numbers might go up pretty significantly.
My house was $120,000 increase because of the city's reassessment. So it's that base, that tax base is going to go up. I just have a question on, following up on Kevin's, was in the past we pre-bought like utilities, services and things, where we prepaid and got a better deal. Are we still in any of those that were okay because they're going up and we locked in, or are we at that point we have to renegotiate those?
That expired in January.
Okay.
So I've been told not to lock anything in right now, because we'll wait until August. And in August, we can prepay 8 months for next year, but it's not looking great.
Right. That's why I was just wondering, maybe we were locked when this goes up. We were locked in, so, okay. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the preliminary budget?
So moved.
Second.
A motion, a second, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passed unanimously.
And my last item is the renewals for general insurance for the new year. So when I refer to general insurance, I refer to kind of our district insurance, which includes property, workers' comp, liability, umbrella, cyber crime, all those different pieces. So in board docs, you can see what our renewal rates are. There's a kind of a summary for premium increases for next year. Overall, our premiums will go up by $50,000, and that's really attributed to a couple different factors within our coverages that we have in there. One of them that we don't have a lot of control over is the workers' comp number. So our mod last year was at 0.66, which is one of the lowest you can get for our industry. So that's great because it saves on premiums, but the bad news is that there's only one way to go once you're that low, that is up. So we're still at a low number relative to the average. So the workers' comp mods based on average being 1.00. Our number is still at 0.82, which is a good number below the average, but it's still higher than what it was last year, 0.66. So that attributed to about a $20,000 increase in our premiums for the upcoming year. The other number that increased significantly was cyber insurance. And so this is an ongoing kind of process to get that renewed each year. And that's a result of just a significant increase in the amount of cyber attacks on the districts and just across the nation, all industry, what that looks like. So there are a lot of pieces that our insurance requires to have in place to bind coverage, which thankfully, and credit to our technology department, we had a lot of those pieces already in place. But even with that, it's just a big risk for them. So that's why that premium increased. In future years, we may see insurance carriers not even carry coverage for stuff like ransomware. Other pieces they would, but that seems to be one that they're getting pretty leery of in terms of offering coverage. Other areas that increased, so our property insurance, that's a result of the last piece of the referendum, so additional square footage for that. But also that's probably more of an inflationary type piece with construction costs going up. The cost to replace property is increasing. And then the other one, educators' legal liability, that's a result of just an increase in the amount of lawsuits against districts across the country we've seen over the last couple of years, so that premium resulted as well. The good news is that relative to other districts, it wasn't as dramatic or significant of a hit. The bad news is still increasing our premiums for next year, which is more than we're expecting last year. So.
They feel like a 20% increase overall, right?
Yep.
Is there a motion to approve the general insurance renewals?
I would make a motion to approve the general insurance renewals.
Any discussion? Other than we hate when it goes up, but unfortunately, we're not the insurance companies. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Thanks, Ben, for all your work on that, and thank you, committee members, for your work on this. Next item are Conrad's handbook and the annual approval of giving the administrator's authority to our teachers.
Thanks. This evening, we have some non-substantive changes for the support staff vacation language. We really just want to get this cleaned up and have it eliminate some ambiguity. We've had some employees leave middle of the year who really weren't aware and weren't thinking about this, and so it just helps us when we can point to some language to say, no, this is, we're not making this up, this is language that exists in our handbook. So it's nothing changing, benefits staying exactly the same, just rewording it and reorganizing so it's clear. When we onboard the employees now, we can make it clear with them so they know about it. And it's actually giving us also a good opportunity to reconnect with our administrators to make sure that they're also emphasizing this and monitoring this. We talked a little bit about it at PNF. We're in a tough profession when you hire people to say you can't take vacation in the summer, because that's actually when we like them to take vacation often. And so sometimes people will get time that they had technically earned, but we always get that time back if they do leave. And this just makes it easier for us to do that when that happens. So we just ask to get that language approved.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the update to the handbook?
So,
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is when we come to the board every summer, and just for those who may be new and help understand the background behind this, when resignations take place over the summer, that is when the competition becomes as fierce as ever to try to get candidates to replace them. If you're under contract with another district and you want to come to Cedarburg, you have to get out of your current contract, so you have to wait for that school board to have a meeting. And if they don't have approval from our board on the front end, we can't get that contract technically approved until this school board meets. So you could have to wait for 2 school board meetings, and based on the timing, that could be almost 2 months. And that just, you'll rule out the ability to get a veteran employee from another district in many cases. So we just ask on the front end at the beginning of each summer, please give us this approval so that we can extend these contracts to people. Then they know they've got a contract that's been approved, and then they can safely resign from their current district, in which case they don't have to worry so much about waiting for that action that that board may take. And so it really just gives us the ability to be as competitive as possible, especially important this summer because we need to fill the assistant principal job at the elementary level. And this is the first time we've had to do that. And that job starts July 1, so we really don't want to wait until the July board meeting if we can get that person to hit the ground running on July. Knock on wood, we don't need to use this. Maybe we won't have a lot of resignations, but this is just to really keep us in the best possible position should we even get one. We want to be able to move quickly on it.
And we've been doing this for a number of years.
Since I've been here, 9 years.
It's been successful.
Yeah, it has helped a lot. And we always bring them back to the board as in the background information. So you see them, you see the numbers, the controls are in place. We can't ever offer anything that's within our budget. We have to stay competitive. We have to honor our internal comps. So there's plenty of controls in place to give you the assurance that this is the smart move.
Is there a motion to approve the teacher administrative contracts to replace those who resign over the summer, given that staff?
I'll make that motion.
second.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Conrad.
Thank you, Conrad.
Alan's up, he has 3 items.
Actually, I'm going to take it from him.
Oh, Alan, you can have a seat. Rick is gonna, no, you might want to take one.
So the first one is new English primary resources that were brought to us, and twice. Once it was introduced, then they brought us the books so we could read the books, and then it came back again, and we had another discussion the other night on it. So I'll make the motion to remove those, to approve those primary resources.
I'll second that.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed unanimously. The second one is really a cool one because Calvin McMurray, our vice principal, brought it forward, and it's a chance for our kids to leave with a small engines certification if they take the course here. So they needed to change the book. The book is written by Berkeley Stratton, Wisconsin leader in small engines. So it was a really nice text that they showed us in the workbook. So I'd also move to approve changing that primary resource.
Second?
Not a question, I think it looked like a great course, but I would like us to sometime consider if some of these courses could be taught over summer school. Because I have a feeling a lot of people would like to take these courses, and they want an academic workload, but this might be a course that people would love to sign up for, taking the summer school. That and the drone making lessons, too, would be a good thing. We'd like to do that. Just a thought.
Look at you, Casey. Add it to your list of possibles, okay. Other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed unanimously. Okay, you can do the last one.
The last one is, the board a few years ago entered into an agreement with the GAP program, which established a routine exchange with our students and students at a specific school in Germany. So that's all approved. What this item is this evening is you to approve the actual travel. So on the books for next summer is a travel experience for a subset of Cedarburg High School students. So policy requires that you approve foreign travel 1 year in advance of the trip, barring any circumstances that would give you, of course, the prerogative to cancel the trip as soon as you come up.
And we went through this in the curriculum committee meeting in some detail, and it's a long-term relationship, so I will move approval.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Great program.
Discussion, it's a great program, but I'll be voting against it, and I always do, just because there's some countries that do not allow us to do a record check on host families. But if they come here or we go there under FS, they allow that, but not under these other programs. And although I support the program and I think it does a great thing, I can't, in good conscience, think it's a good idea to send children where there isn't a full record check, even though it may not be culturally, in their area to do that. But this one, that they do have significant other contacts with the host families and things to try to work that out, but it's just something that bothers me. So.
Yeah, I get it, it's a long-term relationship, and,
Yeah.
and also we do disclose to the parents.
We do,
what
we do,
exactly
so the
it
parents
is.
know there is no check being done.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, other questions or comments? If not, I'll put the motion before you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Any abstentions? Passes.
Thanks, Al.
Also, thank you.
Excited to have foreign travel again. after being
Yeah,
away for a couple
it's
of years.
excited.
Let's hope so, yeah.
Donations.
Donations, we have 3 donations this evening. Board members, the first is 2 soccer goals and a set of soccer balls valued at $963.97 from the Westlawn 5th grade parents. Goals will be installed over the summer on the Westlawn Elementary School grounds. And they will be working with Brian Braxton, the Director of Buildings and Grounds, to make sure that installation is done correctly. The next item is a donation in the amount of $559.93 from the Thorson PTO. This donation will be used to purchase blanket boxes for the Thorson Elementary School garden, same type of thing, make certain that Brian Braxton, Director of Building Grounds, will be involved to make certain those are installed properly. And the last donation is the amount of $500 from the Faith Lutheran Church. This donation was used to support the CHS Peace Award Scholarship.
Motion to approve.
So, second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Committee reports? Personnel finance?
So all of the items we talked about were covered by Ben already. The only thing that we discussed at the meeting was the enrollment study presentation. I think that's also been shared with all the board members. And is that also on the website as well? Enrollment study?
We have not put that on our site.
I thought it was linked on board docs for the committee.
Well, it might have been for the committee and the public through board docs. You're
Yeah,
right.
public.
Absolutely, you're right. Yep, it is correct. So it is available in the public.
Second. Curriculum committee, we covered the items tonight. The only other one is working on the social studies in the grade school. And we will provide some books. We had a chance to look that came from the Historical Society on Native American culture in Wisconsin. Some really good texts that they're working on, and that'll be further work that will be coming forward to the committee. But it's just part of Alan's big plate full of stuff that he has to get done. So. Next would be to adjourn into executive session, but prior to doing that, I just want everybody to know that we have somebody that's his last official board meeting tonight.
Kevin, you didn't tell anybody.
And just wanted to let you, we will formally be recognizing Todd after this meeting. but now he tells me that he's retired, so he's not coming in July, so it looks like it may be the August meeting.
Sorry.
But, we, do wanna, we will formally recognize you later, but truly, thank you for all of your hard work in our district, and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you very much. I look forward to coming back to the board and sharing my appreciation. I've been blessed to serve the community, the school, and love our students, and we are in a great position and a nice trajectory. You heard tonight from some of the presentations by some of the teachers and administration, and I look forward to continuing to support the district any way I can to continue great success and experience over the last 9 years.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. And definitely leaving the district better than they found it.
Yeah, that's a good thing, right? If I still listen.
I think so.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate your commitment. It's always been 110% commitment to the students, the families, this community. And thank you for being such a good leader of our school district.
I had the pleasure of being a part of this chamber. I think they call it the community shot on yesterday it was, and I was able to make some comments about the district and the community along with the mayor and a member of the town board. And it was just a really good feeling to be there to talk about our success and the success of the city and the town, and how there's just some nice synergy going on, and it feels much different than it did 9 years ago when I arrived. Not that I had a lot to do with it, but I think we were heading in the right direction as an entire community. And you see that and hear it through the conversation with the mayor and the town board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'll take a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of deliberating and negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing in public funds, or the conducting of other specific businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session pursuant to 19851E of the Wisconsin statutes. Consideration of terms and conditions related to a potential donation to the Cedarburg School District. Will also be executive session to confer with legal counsel for the government body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategies to be adopted by the board with respect to litigation in which it is likely to become involved pursuant to 19851G of the Wisconsin statutes. I will be conferring with legal counsel regarding strategy relating to pupil discrimination complaint case, Cedarburg District versus the State of Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. We'll also make executive session to consider employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data, any employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility pursuant to 19851C of the Wisconsin statute, and to consider financial, medical, social, or personal history or disciplinary data or specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation or charges against specific persons, except where Part B applies, which is discussed in public, would likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred in such histories or data and involved in such problems of investigations pursuant to 19851F of the Wisconsin statute. Consideration of review of superintendent compensation plan based on qualifications and job performance.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We will convene closed session.